Good morning, everybody. I'm down here in my fish room. It's about 11:30 in the morning. As you can see, all of my tanks are still dark. The whole room is still dark. I do have one clip light right there that I've managed to get up and running. So we had a power outage last night, and I woke up about 7:30 this morning to no power. It had just gone out when I woke up. I actually heard the house shut down and go quiet. So I have spent the morning ensuring that all of my fish stay alive and all of these tanks stay up and running to some degree at least. So let's go and have a look at how I've managed to do that, and then I'm going to walk up the street and we're going to actually have a look at why my power's out. And then when everything's back to normal, hopefully later this afternoon, we will come down here and we will do a little bit of a discussion about how I got through this minor crisis. I think we're going to go about 6 or 7 hours before the power comes back on. So I will talk to you in a minute. Alright everybody, now that you saw how I'm keeping my fish alive, let's take a little stroll up the street and go see why I need to run the generator in the first place. Alright everybody, this is the end of the line. We can't go any further than this. That is not just closed to traffic, it is actually closed to everybody, because I know you can't really see it in the video, but the line he is working on is actually connected to this pole right here. So I don't want to even try to walk any further down there, since there's actually loose lines still going on right there. But just up and around the bend, I saw it earlier this morning, a tree had come down and come across the road, and I did hear chainsaws out here a little while ago, so the tree has probably been removed, and now we got the guys actually working on the lines themselves. So hopefully within the next hour or so we'll have some power back on. So I will see you then, and we will have a little discussion about how I got through this minor crisis. Alright, crisis is over. It took about 5 hours all told that I went without power. So a while ago, a few years ago actually, we went through a very bad power outage. We lost, it was a big storm came through Maryland, big hurricane, and we wound up losing power for about 4 days. And at the time, I only had a few tanks up and running, and I was able to keep all of my tanks alive by using battery-powered air stones, little portable air pumps that you could use that took batteries. I now have so many tanks that would have been simply just not feasible to keep tanks up and running, especially over a course of several days if I had to do that again. So last winter we had a big storm and it scared me. I didn't lose power, but it did scare me enough that I went out and I bought that generator, and it paid for itself yesterday. I was able to keep all of my tanks up and running. It didn't work the way I expected it to. I did have a switch put into my house so that I could actually run the generator directly into my panel, and for some reason that switch was not working, so I had to do the old-fashioned running of electric cords and extension cords all through the house. But I was able to keep all of my tanks running. I didn't worry about running the lights or anything. My concern was the filtration and the circulation, and as long as all of that stayed up and running, everything would have been fine. So I had 2 tanks upstairs, 2 of the 3 that were not plugged in and not running yesterday. One of them, the larger tank that actually had more fish in it, the tank that's in my wife's room, I did manage to get that plugged in. I ran an extension cord down there, but my tank in the living room and my tank in the office are both 10-gallon tanks, and I left them alone almost as sort of an experiment. What I did with the tank in the living room was every hour or so I just took a glass of water and I went in there, or a drinking glass, and I went in there and I just scooped up some water and poured it into the tank, and then scooped up some water and poured it into the tank. I know it's hard to believe I just got in there and cleaned all that cyanobacteria out of that tank about a week ago, and it looks like that again already. Comes back fast. So that's how I kept that tank alive. I kept circulating the water every so often. I've shot a series of videos recently where I really drove home the point that surface area is where you get your gas exchange, and the water circulation is what then moves the more oxygenated water down in the tank. So that's what I was doing manually yesterday. I was simply using drinking glass and just pouring water into the tank so that it would swirl around and I would keep the tank oxygenated, and I didn't have any issues in that tank. And then my tank in the office, I let that sit completely still for 5 hours. It was a 10-gallon tank, and it only has a single silver molly in it. So I kept my eye on that tank very closely, looking for any sign that the molly was suffering from low oxygen. And in a tank that small with only one fish, I really didn't think it was going to be a problem. The gas exchange simply occurs whether the water is moving or not. And over a fairly short period of time, like 5 hours, with only a single fish in there, I didn't experience any issues whatsoever. The molly never swam to the top of the tank. It never rose up in the water column. Because again, the surface is where your gas exchange happens. So in a stagnant tank, the water closer to the surface has more oxygen in it than the water deeper down in the tank. And yet my molly still never even showed any signs of concern. So after 5 hours, everything got back up and running. The power came back on. I was able to unplug everything and get it plugged back in the way it normally should, and the crisis was averted. So it is something to think about. I know other parts of the world do their electrical infrastructure differently than we do here in America. But if you live here in America, chances are you live somewhere where you've got overhead lines that run through trees. It's the dumbest possible way of doing it, but we've been doing it this way for 125 years, so apparently if it was good enough for our great-great-great-grandparents, it's good enough for us, and we will continue to suffer from power outages every time we have windy or rainy days, etc. So it is definitely worth investing in a small generator if you have multiple tanks, or if you only have 1 or 2 tanks. It's not a bad idea to just have a little battery powered aerator on hand. If your power does go out, you can simply put an air stone in the tank and keep the water moving and keep it oxygenated until your power comes back on. That's what my neighbor next door did. Buddy of mine, he's only got a couple tanks, and we went through this before together when we both only had a couple tanks, and that's how we got through it. We used the battery powered air stones, and to my knowledge he did not experience any losses yesterday either, just by simply putting his little battery powered air stones in his tank. So there you go, everybody. It's just something to think about. I've been waiting to use that generator, and it worked like a charm. Again, the switch didn't work properly, but the generator itself provided me with plenty of power to keep all of my tanks up and running, and I had enough extra that I had some lights on in the house and was able to make myself some coffee and everything else yesterday. So not a bad day all in all, despite the minor crisis. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that was instructional to some degree, or at least, opened your eyes to the idea that maybe you might want to have a little backup plan in case you do lose power. We are here in the Northern Hemisphere heading into the winter, and if you live here on the East Coast of the United States like I do, we are smack into hurricane season right now, so you really ought to think about having a way to keep your tanks up and running should you lose power for any length of time. So thanks again for watching. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.